With the NBA season in full swing, baseball getting underway, and the NCAA tournament, plus the Masters right around the corner, the sports calendar is officially heating up, and that means now is the perfect time to take your sports fan couch experience to the next level by getting in on the action yourself. The Athletic has partnered with BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks, to bring you the latest odds and exclusive offers to bring you closer to the game than ever. Subscribers of The Athletic get an in-depth analysis from our newsroom, plus insight into the latest betting trends and odds from BetMGM's team of experts, getting you the context that you need to nail your next pick or parlay. I'm looking at the Philadelphia 76ers at plus 1,400 to win the NBA title. Maybe they'll trade for Kyle Lowry. I don't know. If you bet that now, you just get that baked in. So right now, BetMGM is offering Down to Dunk listeners a risk-free bet up to $600 when you use the promo code DOWN2DUNK. Just sign up at betmgm.com and use the bonus code DOWN2DUNK to take advantage of this special offer from the king of sportsbooks. This offer is for new customers. As a risk-free bet up to $600 at betmgm.com with the bonus code DOWN2DUNK. Visit betmgm.com for terms and conditions.
Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, and Virginia. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In Tennessee, call or text the red line at 800-889-9789. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. And with me today is my good friend, Michele Barra. Michele, what's up?
I moved. I'm in a new life, new house, new everything. I'll try to be even more active on Twitter and have a room that has less echo.
That's okay. I can totally relate to podcasting in a new place. It's weird. You got to figure it out. But we're super happy for you and your family. It's very great. Speaking of new, speaking of weird, different, it was a year ago today that the Thunder and Celtics played in that epic matchup where it just felt like the Thunder just were done, toast. And then Kemba Walker, they inbound the ball to Kemba, and Kemba dribbles the ball the wrong way, and I will forever be baffled by that because there's zero reasons for you to go that direction. You're dribbling into the corner, and they steal the ball. Schroeder makes the layup. Chris Paul defends Tatum perfectly on the other end. Game over, Thunder win. And it felt like, that was a big win. At that point in the season, the Celtics weren't the Celtics of this season. They were a very, very good team. And they win that game on the road, and they were rolling. And then Utah was coming into OKC that week. I think it was that Wednesday that they came in. This was on a Sunday last year. And it just felt like the Thunder were really poised to do something, and then things just shut down. And we had no clue about COVID. I think we even had talked about COVID on the podcast. Because in Italy, things had progressed to a level that they hadn't in the U.S. yet. And we just had no clue what we were up against or what the league was up against or what the entire world was up against on that Sunday. It was just kind of one of like the last like normal-ish moments that we had.
Yeah. I remember us discussing, the game in Boston was awesome. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it was this team that had, the Thunder were rolling in that moment. But it was still a tough game, a tough road trip. I think that the game before was the one where Shea exploded in Toronto for an amazing win against the Raptors. And so... if I'm not mistaken, and that week was awesome. I mean, you win against the Raptors, you win against the Celtics. It's an unexpected 2-win on the road, and then you come, you go home, and and COVID starts to be something more real. I remember us discussing it's safe, it's not safe. It was in Tulsa, I think, a couple of days before that were the first cases, and we didn't know about how quickly it could propagate. And I mean, in Italy, yeah, we had some clue, but not this.
Yeah.
Not nearly this.
Yeah. It is wild to think about. We're not going to talk the whole pot about COVID, but I think it does bear mentioning that it was this week. And for me personally, tomorrow will be like the anniversary of my start date with the Athletic. And it was just a couple days after that the league shuts down. And so for me, had I signed my contract days later, or we had my start date be a few days later, I wouldn't even have this job. I mean, it is.
Yeah, don't be silly. You're
So
a great
crazy for me.
podcaster.
Well, I'm just telling you, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what everything looks like at this point. So it was everything is just so crazy to think about. And just watching that clip this morning, and I ripped it from YouTube and threw it up on my Twitter page. That feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like we have just experienced so much life between that point and today, way more than we do in a normal year. So it's just, and we're all in this together. We're all getting through this together. It's wild to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, if you ask me, in March, we were kind of under the impression that we would have like a couple of months, maybe up until the summer, maybe winter. But I remember, I don't know if I told the story, probably yes, on the podcast, I don't remember. But my daughter, who was 5 at the time, she told me, Dad, if next year we'll still be in lockdown, I'm telling you, I'll call Santa, I'll go to the North Pole so that I can be free without a mask. And I told her, Anita, well, if that happens, trust me, I will be in the North Pole with you. Instead, I'm still here. But that was how we felt in that moment. And kids, they always find good ways to tackle business.
They do.
I'll escape. I'll go to Santa.
I will say that I feel more hopeful now than I have in a while that things will eventually get back to a new normal that's not so clouded by COVID. So I feel hopeful today. I feel hopeful about just our situation with the world. I feel hopeful about this Thunder team. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to give grades for this Thunder team. We'll call them midterm grades. So, Michele, first we have to establish our scale. And you texted me this morning that you had a meat scale. And so I am dying to know what this is. Where
do you want to start? At the bottom or at the top?
Let's start with the dregs. Let's start with the bad meat first.
So the worst meat. So this is based on real experience I had in the United States. Since I love meat, it's not a particular kind. So I cannot say chicken is bad or rabbit is bad or venison is bad. No, nothing like that. It's based on specific moments and hopefully like stuff that happened to all of you. Is that okay? Is that fair?
Sure.
So the worst thing, it's my last day when I was in the US, when I was a PhD student at Purdue. And I had a couple of friends that insisted to get my favorite dish, which was a T-bone steak.
Yeah.
And I went to a butcher and I remember the figure, $17.24 on a steak. And we went home, and this girl named Talia, who was the wife of one of my coworkers, said, "I'll cook it for you." I said, "Please don't. So yes, I'll use the broiler. Please don't.
Please
And and it was basically so well done that I couldn't even chew it. And this is the worst possible thing. Like having the best in like, I mean, you have this meat that raw looks fantastic, and when you have it on the plate, it's terrible, terrible. So this is the worst for me. So great meat.
This is like a Mitch McGarry cooked steak.
Exactly. You can call it that way.
Okay.
The second thing, which will get every one of you mad at me, first because of my stupidity, and second because I will be probably erratic. I had to spend Thanksgiving in the US, and so I thought to have a very nice dinner. And I thought, well, why didn't we went in Chicago for these 3 days because we had 3 days off, and we decided to have Thanksgiving dinner in a restaurant, on a very fancy restaurant. I waited 2.5 hours to be seated, and I had the worst turkey of my entire life. So it was so dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so dry. I had to put all the gravy on it, and it was not enough. So dry turkey to me is the second worst, and it's worse compared to the T-bone, just because I should have known better. Like Thanksgiving is not. You don't have to go to the restaurant.
Yeah.
So middle of the scale, this will be quicker. It's pork shoulder.
Okay.
Pork shoulder, it's something that I cook. I cooked regularly there because it was cheap, and I thought it could be a very good dish to bring to a potluck. And one night, it came out perfectly. Like 8 hours of cooking. It was so good that one of my friends who is vegetarian tried it and loved it.
Wow.
And so the next week, they asked me to do it together, to do it again, and it came out just okay.
Yeah.
So, and this is terrible because you have something that you see. Wow, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be Hammy do Diallo in New York, and then you get the regular Hammy and say, yeah, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't came here for this.
Hammy shoulder.
Exactly. Number 4, it's. Here we are in the echelon of very good things, and this is my great experience in terms of barbecue. That unfortunately is not in Oklahoma because I didn't have time to try the real barbecue. I went to Austin, Texas, and I had one of the most amazing barbecue I've ever had. And it was just.
Was it ribs? Was it brisket? What'd you have?
I think that the main dish was the main piece of meat that I took was brisket, and it was insane. It's just insane. But at the top of the list is I went to a conference when I was there at Purdue, and one of the sponsors paid for the dinner, and I had a dry-aged ribeye steak, and that was
ribeye is where it's at.
It's okay. This is the scale.
Okay, so ribeye, brisket, Hammy shoulder, dry turkey, Mitch McGarry steak.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's our scale. That's the language that we will be speaking from now on about these players. Let's start with you want to start should we start at the bottom or the top of the rotation? Let's start at the bottom of the rotation. And build our way through. So let's start with, I don't even know that we can talk about Darius Miller because he's played so few minutes. Let's talk Justin Jackson, who is 6.4 points per game, 2.3 boards per game, 29% from 3 on 3 attempts per game, and 80% from the line, 40% overall. What grade would you give Justin Jackson?
Well, it depends. My expectations were basically 0. Compared to the expectation is exactly what I expected. So a player that it's not impactful in terms of winning, that probably is good for tanking. So I would say, I mean, if you think that Justin Jackson can start, this is a turkey situation. Like you should have known better. But it's not terrible. I mean, it's not that you get so much worse than what you anticipate him to be.
I feel like he's dry turkey just because he has been billed as a shooter for so long. You know, like that's what he's supposed to be coming into the draft. That's who he's supposed to be on this team. And he's had a few good games, but I would I would give him a dry turkey on this season. He's not been the worst. He's not been awful, but I would say that he's been mostly dry turkey.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. And now that I'm thinking of dry turkey, it's it's Justin Jackson is it's a perfect example for that.
Okay, next player. I'm going to go check something, but I want you to talk just about Alexei Pokusevsky.
Oh boy, I had so many hopes about Alexei Pokusevsky, and don't get me wrong, I still have very good feelings about what can be in the future. So it's harsh to say Mitch McGary's stake, but it's reality. I mean, it's I remember taking that T-bone and like starting to feel like the taste in my mouth, and it's just Pokusevsky preseason. Like you see a guy that can do it all with the ball, that takes 7-6-8 threes a game in preseason and makes a couple. And what can I say? I mean, it's being disappointing. It's been not great in the G League. It's been terrible in the league. And compared to what we had over the first few games of the preseason, it's just overcooked filet mignon. Probably it's an overcooked T-bone for me because I had hopes. And again, it's not that I will never try to cook a T-bone in that way in the future. So I'm all in for Pokusevsky like being better than what he is right now. But if we have to judge what it is today, then it's just an overcooked meat. If you want to go to the G League, as Sean Corgill says, well, maybe he gets to the turkey level or stuff like that. Because I mean, even in principle, that should have been an okay dish to have. I don't know.
He did average 4 assists per game.
Yeah,
in the G League bubble, he showed off passing. He showed games of being able to score and actually took free throws. I think we saw a little bit more in the G League what we had hoped to see in the NBA with him. And I'm really glad that they recalled him, because I think that it's recalled. It sounds like he was like something at a store. I'm glad they're bringing him back up from the G League, because I'm excited to see if there is some improvement on his end. Because I do think that it ended up being pretty important for him. I think it ended up being a good thing for him, just trying to get him as many minutes as possible, because they were nearing territory where they may have needed to stop playing him just for confidence issues, because he had tremendous confidence to start the year, and it was waning as games went on. He was trying things less and less and less as the season was going on. And so I do think that it was a good thing, and we'll see how impactful it is to him once he gets back here. And I assume he'll play Wednesday night against the Mavericks, and I'm very intrigued to see how he looks once he's back.
Yes, I hope that he plays against the Mavs, and maybe the grade will go up quickly. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. All right, let's go to the next player, Mike Muscala, who on the season is averaging almost 10 points per game, almost 4 rebounds per game, shooting 37% from 3, which doesn't seem right to me at all. It seems like he's shooting like 47% from 3. He's having a tremendous season. I feel like he's been very impactful to the Thunder. You go to cleaning the glass and you look at his on-off numbers. He's the second best on the team in terms of on-off. And I think that matches the eye test, because when he's out there, he is impacting, winning on both ends. And it actually gives me a little bit of hope that he may have a trade market, because I do think that he is a guy that can come off the bench and be impactful for a lot of NBA teams.
Yeah, I agree. To me, he's straight up barbecue. He's not like a steak just because there is just probably one player that is at steak level for me. Maybe 1.5. We'll see. But Mike has been better than what we thought. He's better than last year. And as you said, when he's on the court, the opponent defense just has such a tall task. When he and Shea share the court, it's a nightmare because Shea can find him in pick and pop situation. He can find him in the corners. He's just the perfect bench center that just comes in, nails a couple of jumpers, and you're going to pay him in the playoffs in terms of defense. But for the regular season, he is quite perfect. And if you have a very good level of defense, like if you are a team like Milwaukee or teams like that, even the Lakers have like enough players in that role. But maybe a team like that would just say, well, what if I give you a second for Muscala? And I think I think it would be good to trade him, even for a second round pick.
Totally agree. He's a plus 9.8 on the season, which is wild. It's also wild that Justin Jackson's a plus 3. He's one of just a handful of players that have a positive efficiency differential on the team, which to me is just, it's wacky. And I said this on the Dream Team. Like, it's just like there's some things that just kind of wacky going on with this team, and Mike Muscala and Justin Jackson being two of the guys that have a positive differential. It's just like, it makes me tilt my head a little bit, like, really? Like, okay, like, this is weird.
Well, they share the court with Kenrich. This is why.
I know we'll get to Kenrich here. Let's go to Kenrich. I mean, holy moly. His stats, I mean, they're not going to blow you away, just his counting stats. I mean, you take a look at what he's done so far: 6 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 0.8 steals. He is shooting 42% from 3, but on not that many attempts. What is his total attempts? It's like 1 per game. He shot 50 threes. Yeah. You know, he's not shot very many threes this season. He's 11th. Isaiah Roby has taken more threes. Alexei Pokusevski has taken more threes. Teo Maledon's taken almost 3 times the amount of threes that he's taken. So he's hitting 41%, but cool. I don't know if he's a 41% three-point shooter. I don't even know if he's like a 35% three-point shooter. I have no clue what kind of shooter he is, to be honest, just because he hasn't taken enough. But when you look at the on-off, Kelly, plus 13.5.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? What do we do with that? He's 96th percentile in the entire NBA in differential. And it's in 650 minutes, which is not insignificant whenever you look at the total minutes played for each guy. Because what is he? He's 6th in minutes played on the team. He's played more than Al Horford, more than Roby, more than Muscala, more than Jackson. He's played more than Pokusevski. Like, he's played this isn't just a small sample size theater. It's not like Josh Hall having that impact, or even Ty Jerome. He's played a lot and he's been impactful. And to me, that number is crazily unsustainable. I mean, you would think by looking at that he's LeBron James or something. You know, it is a wild number. It's a number that guys just don't get to. So I try to help me, McKelly, help me to figure out what this means, because I do like him. I like him as a player, as a long-term role-playing piece. Like, I really like him. But what do we do with that number?
Well, that number is, I think, a bit wonky. I would say that plus 15 is, or 13, what it is right now. It's probably a little bit too much compared to where I think it could be, given his production. But on the other end, to me, it's clear that when he's on the court, the team plays just a better blend of basketball. That, to me, is undeniable. Like, he's just a guy that does always the right thing on the court. He plays good defense. He knows how to pass the ball. He constantly moves around. He screens for others, relocates, takes good shots. makes, again, good decision in terms of shooting, cutting, trying to get to the rim. I think that maybe I want to give him barbecue as well, because compared to where he started, I think that the second unit, him and Muscala are the guys that are probably giving this team the record, which if you want to look on the other way around, I think it should be a terrible grade, because they are actually making this team win more than what they should. Because the reality is, this team is not winning with the starters. It's not winning with Shea on the court, because Shea is on the court against better players. But the second unit plays at such a high level in terms of quality of basketball that it's just and a lot of that is having Kenrich out there. So I really think that one of the things that Lorenzo Neri, one of my good friends and a great basketball mind always tell me is, if you want to evaluate a coach, and just show me your second unit and I will tell you who you are. And I think that with Degnault, this is clearly something that is happening. The second unit plays like he wants them to play, and Kenrich is the engine behind that. It's almost absurd to say that Kenrich Williams is the guy who anchored the second unit, but it's like that. It's not with scoring, it's with defense and with decision making. It's almost a Draymond Green-like player. If you look at the Draymond stats, yes, those are clearly better, but the first version of Draymond was not all that different from Kenrich. I think he averaged like 4 points and stuff like that in his first season. And it was old, but he knew how to play basketball. So I wonder if here we are witnessing something like that, when we have a guy that is basically the soul of your unit, and even if he doesn't do anything special, he always make the right play.
Yeah, to your point, Draymond Green this season plus 12.5 when he's on the court. And the counting stats aren't spectacular for him either. So I think it's a really interesting comp. Obviously, Draymond has a ton of intangibles that Kenrich does not have when it comes to like leadership and things like that. But the play on the court is not crazy different when it comes to defensive activity and then offensive versatility. I don't think they're insanely different.
And again, Kenrich is doing it for a team that is losing on a second unit. Draymond is doing it has done it for teams that were winning at such a high level. But sometimes when you have a player that you basically cannot leave him open, not for real, you can cheat on him because he will exploit your weak defense, and he can play defense on basically 3 roles. Maybe it's a guy that you want to keep around just for that reason. And it's clear that part of the reason why it's also because he nearly doesn't play with Bazley, who is one of the worst in terms of rating for the team.
Yep, we will get to Bazley. Let's first go over to the stream. Thanks so much for everybody for joining. We have Jod listening, Daniel Winter listening for the first time, Chad Scott listening in here in OKC. We have one of our friends in Greece. I just can't read your name. I'm so sorry. Daniel from Sydney, thanks for joining. Evan is here. Let's see who else. Yoni from Israel, thanks for joining. Good afternoon from OKC from Sean Cargill. We have Adve from New Jersey. We have Christos from Greece. Andrew from Salt Lake City. We have Brett from Seattle. Luke from Boise, Idaho. Let's see. Patty from Iowa. Thanks for joining. Steven from Utah. Unfortunately, he says, thanks for joining. Michael from New Zealand. Tanner from Rapid City, South Dakota. Holy moly. Kirk from Lexington. Man, this overwhelms me every time that we go over here and read where you guys are at. Means a lot to us. M Webb from San Diego. Kyle S from Hawaii. Man, I wish we could be in Hawaii right now. That would be amazing. Dylan in OKC. Fiddy in Oregon. Thanks so much to everybody. Andrew Potter in Turkey. Means a ton to us that you guys are listening. When we come back from our break, we're going to talk more mid-season grades. We're going to talk more about meat. Again, we appreciate you joining, and we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. I don't know about you guys, but I listen to podcasts all day long. It's part of my job, but I still enjoy doing it. And I'd probably do it even if I wasn't working in podcasts. I wake up, I throw my earbuds in, and I'm listening to podcasts. And the earbuds that I'm throwing in are Raycon wireless earbuds. I used to kind of fool around with plugging a wire into the headset, and sometimes they get pulled out, or I drop my phone and it would just be an absolute mess. Sometimes I just need a little bit of space from my phone. I need to set it down and walk around, but I'd still like to be able to listen to podcasts or to audiobooks or even just some music. And I don't want to just have my phone on my hip all the time. So I use my Raycon wireless earbuds, and it is just a wonderful experience. They provide 6 hours of playtime, so I don't need to be recharging them even throughout the day. 6 hours should be plenty for me to listen to during the day, and they are. It's wonderful. Raycon makes great sound that's accessible to everyone, with wireless earbuds starting at half the price of other premium audio brands. They're also sweat and water resistant, and the Bluetooth pairs very quickly, which is nice. And the design is a little bit more discreet as well. It's not some big thing sticking out of your ear, which I very much enjoy. Raycon.com is offering 15% off all their products for Down to Dunk listeners. And here's what you got to do. You go to buyraycon.com/dunk. That's it. That's all you got to do. You'll get 15% off your entire order. So feel free to grab a pair and a spare. That's 15% off. Buyraycon.com/dunk. Buyraycon.com/dunk. And we're back from that quick break. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're on the stream, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, be sure that you do that. Just go to youtube.com, search Down to Dunk, hit that subscribe button. You can even hit the little bell to let you guys know whenever we're live. Our next player, Isaiah Roby McKellar, who on the season he's had kind of a roller coaster of a season overall, but his counting stats on the season are actually impressive. I've said thus far that the guys haven't had impressive counting stats. For Isaiah Roby coming into this season, 21 minutes per game, 8.6 points per game, 5.4 boards, 1.8 assists. He's been impressive. 34% from three at 1.8 attempts per game. So not a ton. The volume isn't quite there to say what he is. 53 3-point shots, similar to Kenrich Williams. Shooting 34% is nice. And then 72% from the free throw line. So he's showing promise as a guy that can shoot it. I think we still need to see more from him to figure out what he is. But overall, McKellar, I've been impressed with him. And as far as the meat scale goes, I just don't know if I can give him anything worse than a pork shoulder, because I feel like he has been pretty good. He's not been crazy impressive or anything like that, but he has not been bad. He started the season kind of bad, but I feel like he's leveled out to like, oh, okay, like he's bordering on dude level.
Yeah. I think that the hammy shoulder or the pork shoulder, it's the right grade to give to Roby, because on some nights you can see him and say, "Wow, is this Roby for real?" He's dunking on people, he's shooting threes off the dribble, he's taking pull-ups, he's doing his thing in the post. And as I said a lot of times with John in Thunder After Dark, I think that at the beginning of the season, there were moments in the game where you could definitely see that that he was not there in terms of understanding the speed of the game, understanding where to be at any time on defense nor on offense. And even if defense is not there yet, especially from a physicality standpoint, I think Roby has a good enough body where he can be a little bit more physical with guys. But on offense, he's making strides. And so depending on the night, you might probably have a great roast or something that is okay, but nothing bad. I mean, I don't recall any game over the last 4 weeks where I could say, well, Roby's quite bad tonight. It's just he's doing his things. And when he starts, the team is not particularly good just because Horford is a better player overall. But on some nights, you don't even realize that he's out there and he's the starter because he's playing at a very good level. And again, for a second-year player that basically had no rookie experience, this is, I think, a very promising season.
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know what it means for his future in the NBA, but I can tell you that he has just been a lot better than I thought. And he may end up being he's a guy that scores the points kind of thing. But, if he's the kind of guy that could kind of stick around in the NBA, whether it's with the Thunder or not, because we do have to acknowledge the fact that this Thunder team is going to be drafting several players in this next draft, and they will need spots on the roster. And some of those will be generated by expiring deals, like Mike Muscala's expiring deal. I think we don't really know what to make of Hamidou Diallo and where the Thunder will go with him, if they re-sign him or not. Justin Jackson. But also Isaiah Roby could be one of the spots. So it's just something to acknowledge that it's not that he has like a completely safe spot on the roster. But I will say that he may have carved himself out like a nice little career, which is great. Let's go over the scale again for those listening live on the podcast. So the very top of the scale, if you've had the best season, you're just a perfectly cooked ribeye. Next one is a perfect barbecue brisket, just delightful. The middle of the pack is a pork shoulder that is just cooked okay. It's okay. 5 is dry turkey, no explanation needed. And then the 5th spot on the scale is a steak cooked to Mitch McGarry's perfection, which is well done and disgusting. So if you've been horrible, you get a Mitch McGarry steak, which I think we've only given one of those out to, and that was Alexei Pokusevsky, who is having one of the worst statistical seasons in the NBA right now with the way that he shot the ball and the way that he's turned the ball over. So, okay, so we have given... we just finished with Isaiah Roby. Let's move on to Hamidou Diallo, who has had kind of a delightful season so far. He's coming off an injury. Hopefully he'll be back and ready to go on Wednesday. But 11.9 points per game, almost 12 points per game, 5 boards, 2.4 assists, which might be the most impressive stat to me overall. A steal, almost half a block, only 1.5 turnovers, which is also impressive. 48% from the field overall, 29% from 3, 62.9% from the free throw line. Michele, what do you give Hamidou Diallo?
Well, he is another pork roast, which might be amazing on maybe some part of the roast, or some nights where we nail everything. And in other nights, it's an okay meat to have, but it's not your go-to. I think that Hami had a very rough start of the season, which should count for something, and a very good middle part of the season, and then maybe a little bit of a decline, and then the injury that is keeping him out of the court. So I don't know if giving him just a pork shoulder grade, it's fair, because the good moments that he had were very, very good. But on the other hand, there were a lot of times where it's a lot of mid-range jumpers. It's a lot of tunnel vision. And I think that we need to be fair and say that those moments actually happened.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that it's kind of the perfect spot for him because he's had really high highs this season. The trip to New York was just like unbelievable.
Yeah,
where there's been a lot of moments this season where I've watched this team and felt like I don't know anything about anything, because of the way that some of these guys have performed. And I thought Brett Dawson he said it perfectly on the Dream Team show from last week. You need to go listen to it because Brett was on point. But he just talked about how this season, in a season that doesn't have very many teams that are trying hard, the Thunder are one of them. And Hami has been not only a guy who's tried really hard, but I feel like he has improved. And when you have that effort level plus improvement, which really, to me, it's in his handle and it's in his decision-making that he's improved the most. that gets him here. I was fully prepared. If we talked about preseason stuff, I was fully prepared to be giving him a Mitch McGarry T-bone steak, but he has outperformed what we thought he would be, and huge credit to Hami and huge credit to the Thunder staff for his development. So huge shouts. Let's go to our next Thunder player, and that's Teo Maledon, who has had, or Maladone, or however you want to say it. I don't know. 7.8 points per game, 3 boards, 3 assists, a steal, 1.8 turnovers per game, shooting 35% from 3 on good volume, 4 attempts per game, which that's impressive that he's in the game shooting that much. He's actually perfectly replicating what George Hill was doing with regards to attempts as a starter. Only 39% from the field overall, which isn't great, but did make the Rising Stars roster. I guess you just say roster because they did not play a game and they are not going to play a game. But it's a little bit funny to me that the last 2 seasons has yielded 2 players in each draft to the Rising Stars game for the Thunder, both of which were not the Thunder's first round picks. It's because they had first round picks and then they picked up Dort off the scrap heap, obviously after the draft, and then picked Maledon in the second round. And then Baisley and Poku, who are really they're just swings for the fences, haven't quite met their potential yet. But thoughts on Maledon, thoughts on his season thus far?
Well, the grade is a little bit complicated, but because if you want to understand, like if you want to grade the season in general, like in from a distant point of view, you can say, well, he's a below average player in terms of league average. He's not great. He's shooting okay from 3, but the rest is not awesome. He's clearly not a starter, so it's not great. But if you start from the fact that he was a second round pick and is performing on some nights as probably at starter level, and he understands the game at such a high level that it's hard to seeing him as a rookie. So I think it's between pork and barbecue, something there, because it's clearly not as impactful as a guy like Kenrich Williams, or as consistent as a guy like Mike Muscala. But it's better, I think, that guys like Orby, because I think that from the beginning, it was a guy that you can rely on for quality minutes. And this is something that for a rookie that has never been in the US, and it had experience in the league, but in European league, but it's still incredible that he's able to play it in such a mature way. In some sense, I would love for him to be a little bit more aggressive, especially with his jumper, because I think he has potential to be a very good shooter. And I love when he just comes off the pick and he just immediately shoot it, because I think that is a part of his game that can lead him far away in the league. Without a pull-up, I don't know, but with a pull-up, who knows? I mean, it's something that can make or break a player.
Yeah, I like him. I think he does a little bit of everything. He seems to just, at least at this point, you can see a clear path to him being a solid backup point guard. I don't know if he can be a starter in the NBA, just because he does have a lot of he's got decent size, but he doesn't have great size or great length. He doesn't have great burst of speed or anything like that, but he just projects as like a solid backup point guard that can finish games for you in spots. And I think that's great. If you snag him in the second round, that's wonderful. And it's kind of cool looking back at this draft. There's just a lot of guys at kind of a similar level toward the back of this draft. Everyone talked about this being a flat draft, and I think that is really bearing out. I mean, you look at even like 16, Isaiah Stewart has been nice for the Pistons. Like, he's a nice rotation player. I think Sadiq Bey is obviously a guy that's been exceeding expectations, but like Precious Achua, Tyrese Maxey, and Emmanuel Quickley, who's been good for the Knicks, and Peyton Pritchard, who's been a nice backup for the Celtics, and Desmond Bane, who was drafted at 30 by the Grizzlies. Just like nice players, and there's some misses in there. Like the Hornets drafted Vernon Carey, and Daniel Oturu went right before Maladone, which I don't really get, but glad that he did because, the Thunder got him. But yeah, nice player in a draft full of just kind of nice guys. Like I don't know. I'm very, very pleased with him so far, and I feel like he's got room to improve. If he can improve as a pick and roll ball handler and improve his spot up shooting, I think that he's a guy that sticks around for a long time in the NBA.
Yeah.
All right, next one, George Hill. He's only played 14 games, averaging 11.8 points per game. Kind of a tough one to grade, but if you were to grade him, to me, he's kind of just pork shoulder. Like, yeah, he just kind of is. Yeah. He hasn't blown me away. He hasn't been bad. And I think it's been good for this team that he hasn't been playing, because I do think it allows time for other players to get time to play and really lean into the development part of the season. But how would you characterize his season so far?
Well, it's a tiny little piece of pork shoulder, that's for sure.
It's a tiny, that's right.
Play much, and it's something to say. Yeah, it's okay. Just this tiny little piece it's okay with me. I don't want more of it. I know that it can be good, but I have other hopes for the season. So I think that George Hill, when he played, showed that he could be very, very good for this team in terms of helping the team win, which is, again, not the main goal of the season. I really hope that he finds a place where he can be, and I think there are plenty of teams that will see him more than a pork shoulder, maybe some barbecue piece, brisket, or back ribs, I don't know, because he can make a second unit way better. When paired with a good point guard that can allow him to play off ball and be just a very good shooter and an okay defender. I think that it does make sense for him to, for example, go back in Utah and play as they have a lot of ball handlers and initiators, but I think that you guys like, I don't even know if there is a trade to be made, just making stuff up. But even in Denver, I mean, guys like that can make fortune for a team that is trying to win, and they don't want to overpay for a piece, because I do think that you don't want to pay George Hill with a good first. But if it's 2 second rounders or a heavily protected second or a swap, I don't know, then maybe it's something that you do just because it's better for you to get an asset right there. And again, Denver makes a lot of sense to me, because they would really use a guy like him. I know that they have Monty Morris, they have Barton, they have Harris, but I mean, the playoffs are long, and if you have an injury to Barton, to even Murray, with Hill, you have a chance to win a series. Without, who knows? And of course, the Clippers make a ton of sense.
The Clippers have always made sense, and you basically can swap Lou Will for George Hill.
Yeah,
and the Thunder already have the future of the Clippers in their war chest, so I don't know what they send back to OKC.
They have a Detroit pick, right?
They've Something got seconds, yeah. They've got seconds that they can send back, and like a Rajon Tucker is a two-way player for them that I think is kind of interesting. Obviously, we're big Kabengele guys here. Really liked him in the draft. Really like his potential. He doesn't play at all for them, so I don't know if that's something that would be palatable to Sam to get back for him. But I think there's some interesting deals to be had for George Hill, and I don't really know what the threshold is for Sam and what he wants to get back, but I do know that he is likely to be on the move from Oklahoma City to somewhere else. Okay, here's our top 4 guys. Let's start with Al Horford, who's 14 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, almost a steal, almost a block, 35% from three. His on-offs this season, he's a minus 1.6 on the season, which is better than some other starters for the Thunder. I feel like he's been helpful on and off the court. He's just your steady. He's just your dad. He's your steady dad player on the team. He's been nice to me. He's similar to George Hill. He hasn't blown me away, but I do think that he's been probably a little bit briskety for me. I feel like he's had moments that have been Mitch McGarry steak level. He started the season really, really bad, but I feel like he just helps glue this team together. I think he especially helps Darius Bazley whenever he's out there on the court, because Bazley almost seems lost without him.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go in that direction or the complete opposite in terms of grade and go maybe a little bit Turkey-ish.
Okay.
I don't know. On some nights, I see the value, but maybe I hoped for something that could not be there. I really hoped for a season where Horford could be something more, not to CP3 level, because that season was, and again, CP3 is a completely different player. But I hope that Horford could have a season where after 20 games you say, "Oh wow, we need to get out of here." And instead, it's someone that even if you keep him around, it's not that he's helping you winning to such a high degree. I don't know. I think that guys like Muscala and Kenrich are probably making OKC winning more than Horford.
The numbers bear that out. Yeah. Then that's what the numbers say.
Yeah, but even the play on the court, I mean, you can see him some nights he's having it. He's shooting threes, especially with the baby powers after his son was born.
That's right.
But then it's back and he's okay. I'm doing this. It's nice, and I'm just playing my part, not being great at defense or offense. I'm just do what I'm supposed to do. I play good basketball. I make smart plays, but I think that he could have a better season. And if they don't trade him, it's because he could have been way better than what he was.
Sure. Yeah, I am still a believer in that they'll trade him in the offseason. Whenever there's going to be a lot of cap space available, there's going to be teams that are looking to improve, and he has 1 year less on his deal.
Yeah,
I just think it's similar to the Chris Paul situation in that it's just going to be more palatable for somebody to take him on in the offseason. Okay, this is kind of our young core, Bazley on more toward the outer edge of that than the other two, but we'll start with Darius Bazley, whose raw stats, 11.9 points per game, almost 7 boards per game, 1.5 assists, shooting 29% from three, and he's got essentially a team worst minus 11.6 when he's on the court. He's had a complicated season in a lot of ways. I'm going to give him probably a Mitch McGarry. Well, maybe not Mitch McGarry. Definitely a dry turkey. He's had some flashes of brilliance where he's getting to the basket. He's dunking everything. He's had stretches of the season where he's scoring in double figures and playing well. And he wants tough defensive assignments, and they're giving him a lot to study on his plate. But he has had just some real stinkers in here too. Some really bad games where he's unhelpful on both ends. And then there's a little bit of the attitude stuff with him that has surprised me a little bit this season with him, where he's having a bad game and he's kind of sulking, or he's even putting himself out of the range of even being able to play offense with the team. And I'm just a little baffled by that. I didn't really see that coming from him this season, where he kind of rides the waves of emotions. And it's okay to do that as a young person. We all did that as young people. But to me, he's lacked a maturity that I thought that we would see from him this season. So there's just a lot. There's a lot of complicated things in there. But to me, a lot of it can just be spelled out in that he's a really young guy that has not had a ton of experience as a professional. He didn't get that year of college, which I do think impacts things. And even just playing that year with a team, with a group of guys, I think missing a whole year of that does impact things as far as development goes. And so I don't know. I think he's been dry turkey. I think that we've expected more from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's harsh to give him Burn steak or Mitch McGarry steak, but I think it's closer to that to dry turkey, because over the last month and a half, when I see him play, I just think, oh boy, he's crazy inefficient.
Yeah.
Like at some point, inefficiency, it's important. Like we remember Russ, and it's not a right comparison, but all the possessions that you waste counts for something. And when he's on the court, the offense is extremely inefficient. He gets rebounds and he shows clearly that he has enough talent to be a player in this league. And I think the right move is to keep starting him and to give him opportunities and stuff like that. But he needs to be way more judicious with his shot. I'm looking at his synergy report. He is in the 19th percentile in terms of efficiency to 84 points per possession. This is very bad, and it's bad in spot up, it's bad in isolation, it's bad in pick and roll. It's okay in transition, but it's like he's taking 35% of his possession as a spot up opportunities, and he's making 40% of them. It's just not gonna cut it. And the fact is, the bubble for him was probably the highest point in terms of his shooting, because he was capable of hitting shots, and he was confident, and he was hitting the right ones. And now he's trying to create a lot with his shot, and it's not working. I know that once you try to do something, it's probably bad to say, well, I'll revert to what I can do best, and it's just spot up shooting, and that's it. And probably this is not what the team wants. But if we want to evaluate the results, I think that those are terrible. The defensive part is better than the offensive part, and so maybe the fact that we go to a dry turkey-ish grade, it's because it's undeniable that if you take out the offense, he has been okay to good in terms of rebounding and being versatile and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's been a rough one for Darius, and I still have hopes for him to be a good role player, and maybe that's what he is like a 3-and-D wing, like 3-4 that can attack a closeout, that can lead in transition, that can rebound and go. And if that's what you get, like those guys are really hard to find. Those guys are really hard to find. And I'm hopeful that he can correct his spot up shooting, because if he continues to shoot like this, I really don't know what he is as an offensive player. But if he can get within that 34-35% range, which I do believe he can get to, then it's like, okay, like that's a nice player to have around and to develop, and maybe he gets better than that. But if that's all you get, like, that's a great pick. That's a really, really great pick. So yeah, I don't know. There's still a lot to discover with him moving forward.
Sure.
It's not.
No, it's the grade. It's not about his future. It's about today and this season.
Without a doubt.
So I really think that he could be even better than a role player if everything pans out. But he needs to fix the shooting badly. He needs to fix the decision making again badly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's move on to Lou Dort. 12.3 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, almost a steal per game, 32% from three on the season on 6 attempts per game, 38% overall from the field, 75% from the line. He is one of the few starters who has a positive differential at a plus 0.2, according to Cleaning the Glass, which puts him just smack dab in the middle. He's been so much more than I thought he could be as a player. He's been tremendous. He has started 35 games for this team and has been in double figures 23 of those times. He is finding ways to get to the basket, to finish creatively. He's good in transition. He can play in the pick and roll a little bit. And to me, the biggest test for him has been the shooting. And he started the season really, really hot. Too hot, honestly. And he has cooled off since then. And he's much closer to a 30% shooter than he is a 40% shooter. And that's bared out in the numbers. He's 32% on the season. But he keeps shooting. And he keeps taking them, which is the most important thing for him in his development. We have to remember he is a very, very young player that has played very, very few professional games. And he has improved a lot to this point. And I'm just, I don't know if proud is the right word, because it's like shows like ownership and it's kind of awkward to say, but I do kind of feel that for him, that he does continue to shoot the ball. He's attempted the most threes on the Thunder by a pretty big margin. He's taken 209 threes on the season. And that might be the number, because if he continues to just shoot, and even through his ebbs and flows, if he's consistent and he doesn't let it get in his head, because what kills guys who aren't great shooters is what's going on in between the ears. That's what will absolutely destroy these guys. It destroyed Terrence Ferguson. It was very bad for Andre Robertson's career. We've seen it in OKC so many times that it's just like, and even with Thabo Sefolosha toward the end of his career, like they had to bench him in the playoffs because he was just so much in his head about shooting. And he hasn't done that yet. Now, is it possible for him to revert and do that? Absolutely it is, because we all go through ebbs and flows as people. But I have been so impressed with his confidence level and his ability to tune out everything, even through the bad ruts that he's had where it felt like he was never going to make a three ever again. He continues to shoot it. And that to me shows that he's got a pretty high ceiling, that if he can land at 35% from three, play the defense that he does, that's a starter. He's an NBA starter. And to find an NBA starter off the scrap heap is next to impossible. And it seems like the Thunder have done that. He's basically been the guy the Thunder have been looking for since the moment they arrived in Oklahoma City. Just a defensive bulldog that can take and make threes and play in transition and do all these things. But he's here now, and he will be a part of this next era of the Thunder. I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah, and he's brisket to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go. To me, just Shea isn't a pre-buy, dry-age steak.
For sure.
Because he's totally in a different level. But Dort has a lot to work on. The shiftiness of his drive, the decision-making on offense, I think he could improve on that end, because sometimes he just goes straight into dudes without even think about how he's doing it or why. But he's a plus defender, a very, very good defender on certain kind of players, maybe a little bit more average on shooters. But if you pair him with a guy like Harden or a guy like Lillard or guys like that are same size, like very strong dudes, then Dort is probably among the best in terms of defenders. And he also introduced stuff in his repertoire that weren't there last season, like the fact that he could attack, close out in this way. Yeah, there were glimpses, but at the beginning of the season, he was automatic. Now, defenses are guarding him in a different way. At the beginning of the season, he had a lot of room to drive because no one was prepared for his drives. Right now, teams are sending an extra guy, and this will make things tougher for him. Let's see how he handles that. going forward, because right now in the season there is very little time to adjust the offensive game. You can adjust schematic things on defense, like you can send an extra man there, you can analyze tendencies of opponents, but to have time to work on development of his own skills, it's probably not the time. I wonder what kind of player we'll see in the future. I agree with you. He will be part of this team future because he's so strong defensively and fearless. He is a fearless guy. He has a way to defend screen that is insane. He's taking charges every single game because he goes where other defenders are afraid to go. He's probably the guy that takes the most in terms of physical contacts from the opponents, and still is able to pull off like this offensive season. That again, by the numbers, it doesn't seem a very good one, because when you are 38% from the field and 32% from three, it's not awesome. But in the context of Lou Dort, this is very good news.
Yeah, without a doubt. I've been super impressed with Lou and what his future will be in the NBA. Let's move on, and we'll finish here. We've gone a little bit long, but we'll finish here with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who has been just undeniable this year as a player. I've been so impressed with him. 23 points per game, a career high, 6.2 assists. No one talks a lot about this, but that's double what he's done in the past. And a lot of that's role. A lot of that's who he was playing with. I get that. But still, to double your assist total.
No. Stop there. Don't discount the assist number. I think that with a regular team, he could average almost double digits in terms of assist, just with his play, because the quality of the passes that he's making is insane. So no, I don't want to take anything away from the 6.2 assist. I think he's working a lot. I know that you are not, but just to avoid misunderstanding, Shai is having an awesome passing season. He's just improving immensely in that. Yeah, it is role, but to have a point guard that is able to average 6.2 assists when he has literally the worst three-point shooting team in the league, and it's not his fault because he's the one who increases that percentage. It's quite impressive, because again, to say that three passes are like hits on other teams is not a stretch. He could really average 10 assists. This season had him better shooters around him.
Yeah. I'm glad you did, because you're right. I think that he's definitely closer to 8 assists per game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just look at the efficiency. It's outrageous. 62% true shooting. The list of guys that have had seasons like this is very short when it comes to true shooting percentage, and averaging 20. We just put the criteria of 23, 5 and 5 of at least that. It's not very many players. It's Wilt Chamberlain and LeBron and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Giannis and James Harden, and Nikola Jokic is doing it this season. There's actually quite a few guys that are doing it this season, which is impressive. If we bump that assist number up to 6, things change a little bit. Let me put that. Oh, hold on. I accidentally put 62, which is impossible. There's nobody that's doing that. But the guys that are doing the 23, 5 and 5 on 62% true shooting this season, it's Jokic, James Harden, Steph Curry, Zach LaVine, Shai, Paul George, and KD. And that's it. And that, even just to be mentioned in that group, when certainly offense has gone through the roof.
Yes.
And that has been helpful to a lot of these counting stats. But to keep the efficiency is something that hasn't happened. And when you shorten the list, when you make it 6 assists per game, it's 11 guys in NBA history, or 11 seasons in NBA history that guys have done it. LeBron James has done it 3 times. James Harden has done it once, and that would be this season. Steph Curry has done it twice, including this season, and in 2017-18. Wilt did it in 67, and then it wasn't done again until 2012, until we got to LeBron James. But this is a historic level of efficiency when it comes to the amount of shots and the amount of assists and the amount of rebounds. Like essentially nobody does this except for superstars: Jokic, Curry, Harden. That's it. Like those are the guys. Like that's the list. It's been done 11 times. I don't know if he can hang on to this type of efficiency. I believe he can, but it's an insane list when it comes to the scoring output plus the efficiency.
Yeah, and I want to well, first he needs to do it for at least the entire season, 70 games, something like that, because I mean it's still not small sample size, but still 30 games is kind of a small sample size. But suppose that he does it. It's even more impressive than others because you mentioned players that were on good teams. Curry might be the one this season where he has the worst team, and clearly they are guarding just him. But with OKC, it's really that nobody cares about anyone except for maybe Horford and Muscala in pick and pop situations, and then Shea. That's it. So, and he's playing good defenses. He's playing good teams. Like the Spurs are not a bad team, and he played against the Spurs like no one was in front of him. He was just murdering everyone. He is like he can score at will against basically not anyone because it's not fair. He faced defenses like Milwaukee and had a hard time scoring, but still. The fact that he's able to get to his pull-up whenever he wants, the fact that I think he has the mid-range pull-up and he's not exploiting it as much as he could. Like he's just an incredible player. I was watching to some stats before the podcast, and one that is mind-blowing, and we already mentioned that a lot of times. With the volume of drives that Shea has, which is at the top of the league, there are 3 players that are close to him in terms of efficiency. One that is better is James Harden, who has a very good offense, a very well-spaced offense to work with. And he's James Harden. James Harden. Then there is Shea, and then Luka. So this is how he's playing off the dribble, and it's insane. It's 57% effective field goal on drives. This doesn't happen. Like it's incredible. With these kind of teammates, Shea is putting one of the most efficient season ever. It's imagine if you pair him with good shooters and a guy like Cade who can take a lot of attention on defense away from him.
This is why you want to give Shea, and this is why you want to lose as many games as possible this year, is so that you can get one of these guys in the top 4. Because if you give him one guy, because he's shooting 62%, it's 62% true shooting on the most difficult shots of his career, is what's happening.
Yeah.
And you give him one other guy that attracts attention, because the Thunder don't really have a guy that attracts attention. The ball moves and it creates energy. And yes, guys are going to guard and close out. But when it comes down to it, teams that have had the most success against the Thunder have just thrown every single thing at Shea and just shut everything else down because of that. And Shea has still found ways to score. He's been unreal. And if you just give him Evan Mobley, who could develop into a great pick and pop, pick and roll partner for him. If you give him Jalen Suggs, who can take pressure off of him as a guy that can score. If you give him, obviously Cade would be ideal because of the size and versatility and the fact that he can likely just be a wing that you just can never, ever find. Those are just getting top level talent next to him just means more space for Shea. It means more room to operate. It means better efficiency. It means a better team. It means a team that actually has a future, That's what that's what this means. And yes, Shea has been crazy impressive. He's been wonderful. This team is still far below 500. This team is still far away from even making the play-in tournament. And so if you're satisfied with this team, I just don't really know what to say. And I know that most of you aren't, and I don't even have to say anything to you guys because you guys understand it. You guys understand the direction this team wants to go. You understand what this team is going to do. And so I am so intrigued as to what's going to happen at the trade deadline. We'll stop here. We have gone really long, but we do have the All-Star break, and so I think there's more time. There's less podcasts out there this week, so here's a little bit more for you guys. Make sure that you do turn in some trades because we're doing some trade awards on Wednesday with Alex and I talking Thunder trades. So the trade deadline is coming up in just a couple of weeks. I'm very excited about that. I think there should be some activity on the Thunder's end, so I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. So I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure you follow Michele on Twitter at Mikey Barra. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew K. Schlecht. Have a wonderful Monday. Thanks for listening in on the stream. If you're here with us on YouTube, thank you so much. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you guys again on Wednesday.